Hey y'all, Penny here. It's been a minute, hasn't it? Listen, I could give you all a whole list of reasons I've been gone for so long, and I can't promise that now marks the beginning of the era of this channel having an actually consistent upload schedule, but I do have another video in the works that'll hopefully be out not long after this one, so stay tuned for that. Also, real quick, some of you may remember that I started a third YouTube channel called Copper Recordings, and I announced a project that I and various other musicians worked on to pay tribute to Daft Punk's album Discovery. And while I may not have a release date or cover art or anything of the sort to show you, I can tell you that the project is coming along nicely and it should be out pretty soon. I cannot wait for you all to hear it, and if you haven't already, please go subscribe to that Copper Recordings channel. It's where I plan on uploading that project and any future projects like it, as well as my original music, as well as some music by my other musician friends. Alright, back to the rest of the video. So, at the time of me writing and recording this, Coachella has been over for about a week, and oh my god, it was such a blast. You all might remember that last year I uploaded an over 2-hour long video where I sat in a voice chat with a bunch of people and discussed Coachella 2025. Please don't watch it, it is easily the worst video on my channel, and I honestly might delete it from YouTube due to just how long and boring it is. Anyway, this year, I wanted to mix it up a little, and cover this festival in a way that's actually engaging, though is still a little fun and unscripted. So I had an idea. How about a tier list? Yep, that's right. Someone made a tier maker template with every artist who performed at Coachella, so I'm gonna rank every single set that I saw right here and right now. First up, we have some tiers for the artists whose sets I missed, based on how upset I am that I missed them. Then we have, in order, underwhelming tier, which, that's kind of like the only bad tier here. Laptop tier, if you know, you know. And then there's aight tier, which, performances that I thought were not bad at all, but not really memorable in any way. Then there's the groovy tier, which is where we have some performances that I thought were just that, groovy. I liked them, they weren't anything crazy special, but I liked them. And then we have the such a vibe tier. This is what I would say is kind of like the A tier of it all. It's sets that I really enjoyed, but that I wouldn't exactly call perfect at all, but I would definitely love to go back and watch again if I could. Then we have peak tier. This is the first tier where I really loved everything about these performances. Not just the music itself, but also things like the visual world of the performances, be it stagecraft or things on a screen, or even narratives in some cases. So this is like kind of the first S tier. Then we have Absolute Cinema. This is SS tier. This is for the sets that are like really special, that I am so upset that I cannot watch again. Then we have Inject This Into My Veins, which are some of my favorite live performances that I've ever watched, in all honesty. So this is kind of like the SSS tier of it all. But anyways, without further ado, let's go get into the first tier. First up, we have the Underwhelming tier, and there's only one artist in this tier. I've heard a lot about this guy Fake Mink in the past couple years, and after watching his set, I can safely say this is the only set that I firmly did not enjoy, at all. This guy's music is really just kind of like generic underground rap. He's British, I guess, but there's much better British rappers out there. More on that later. The beats were good, I guess, but the lyrics of these songs were honestly just generic, and I don't think this guy has any stage presence whatsoever. And he also said stuff like... And he also just seemed pretty full of himself. I don't really know how to explain it because, I'm not scripting this, so I'm kind of just going off the cuff, but this was just a disappointing performance overall, like a 4 out of 10. The Michael Jackson sample in that one song was pretty cool though. And then we have Laptop tier, which I think it's pretty obvious that this is referring to Justin Bieber, who notably in his headline Coachella set, whipped out a laptop and just played some of his old songs off of the laptop and sang along to them, which has been a very controversial topic on Twitter and whatnot. If you want to know my thoughts on it, I actually thought it was kind of funny more than anything else. It didn't really make me mad, but I also didn't really think it was that crazy. I thought all of the other Coachella acts that made fun of it were pretty funny, but on the whole, Justin Bieber's set was actually pretty good. It's only this low because I honestly don't like most of Justin Bieber's music, but he is still a very competent live performer, and I think with his new swag era, all of the R&B stuff and the more minimal performance and stagecraft, I think it really does work for him pretty well. So I'm excited to see where he goes from here because, I really liked Daisies, which is the song you guys hear playing in the background right now. And I like a few of the other songs from this album, Swag, and its sequel, Slag 2. So I think he could make an album that I truly do really like in a few years or so. And I'm excited to see that if that's really something that could possibly happen. Now for the IT tier, first we have Black Flag, which is one of the most legendary hardcore punk bands of all time. As for their set here, well, something you gotta remember is there's only one member of the band who has been in the band since the beginning, and that's the guitarist. There's a different drummer, different bassist, different lead singer and everything. All of them did well. The vocal mixing for the lead singer in this performance, who I forgot her name, but editor put it up on screen and maybe put up a picture of her too. Apparently this is like the band's first female vocalist, which I think is pretty cool. The mixing on her voice was kind of rough. I could kind of barely hear her throughout it. The music was good. It was nice hardcore punk, but maybe it just isn't really my style. It did kind of feel like all the songs kind of blended together a little bit, but it was still like pretty enjoyable, and it makes me kind of want to check out more of their music. And there were some songs in there that I definitely do think I really liked. I liked one called Black Coffee, which I relate to because I like drinking black coffee a lot, which I know, probably a pretty stupid reason to like a song, but And then we have the Bob Baker Marionettes, who aren't actually a musical act, but are one of the longest running puppet theaters in Los Angeles, I believe, or somewhere in California. And I thought watching it was pretty cool. I mean, I like marionette stuff, I like puppet stuff. Kind of reminded me of like going to like Disney World and seeing like little attractions on like the streets in Disney World and all that. The song choices were pretty fun. I found one song called like Ooh Dracula by like an artist called like Mystic or something that isn't on streaming services apparently, so cool little rare music recommendation for me. There was also one more where they played like a nightcore version of Soda Pop from K-Pop Demon Hunters. Another one where they had a pirate lip-syncing to Ben Platt's cover of Addison Rae's Diet Pepsi, which was honestly pretty funny. But yeah, the whole thing was pretty enjoyable. I liked it, even though I only kind of saw like 3/4 of it. First up in Groovy tier, we have Cobra. She's a Swedish singer-songwriter who makes dance pop music that very much like raunchy, but that's not something I've ever minded in music. And her stage presence was great. She can sing pretty well. I enjoyed this through and through. I've heard a lot about her and I've listened to her music before. It's pretty fun. I just like this kind of style of electropop music. So, I mean, of course I was gonna like this. So, I hope to see her maybe blow up a little bit more in a few years. She's collaborated with like Demi Lovato now, I think, and Ashniko last year. So, I'm glad to see her blowing up a bit more, because she's definitely a cool artist. And then we have this Japanese DJ called Yusuke Yukimatsu. His Boiler Room set went crazy viral last year, so I ended up seeing that. And it went viral for all of its crazy transitions and for playing all these cool songs. I fell in love with this guy because he played Whole New World by Sophie, which, mad respect for playing that. His set in Coachella had so many other crazy transitions, like Immaterial by Sophie into the Empyrean mix of Firestarter by The Prodigy, or It's My Life by Bon Jovi into Aerodynamic by Daft Punk. On the whole, I would recommend this DJ set, even if you aren't interested in DJ sets otherwise, because this guy played a lot of songs that you'll probably know and love, and I know for a fact that I loved it. And Groovy tier, honestly, is kind of low for it, in fact, so I don't know. As I'm recording this, I'm going to move it up to such a vibe, but, well, editor, you can re-edit the video to reflect this. And then we have the metal band Suicidal Tendencies, who I've heard a lot about, and they made a song called Institutionalized, and I've heard that before, and it's good. This band, I had a lot of fun watching them. I'm not like a metalhead or anything, but I do enjoy a lot of metal, and I'll admit I was kind of headbanging. I was vibing to this whole thing. They even brought out, probably mispronounced his name very badly, but Robert Trujillo from Metallica, because apparently one member of Suicidal Tendencies is like his younger brother or his cousin or something, which I thought was really cool. And then in Groovy tier as well, we have Teddy Swims, who he's broken through a lot in the past few years with his retro soul pop style that I honestly do think is kind of hit or miss. There's some songs of his I really like, some songs I don't really like that much. I can't say his albums are that great, but the singles are pretty damn good. So as a result, this performance ended up being very enjoyable. I watched his Weekend 1 set where he ended up bringing out multiple special guests, namely Joe Jonas, Vanessa Carlton, They Sang 1,000 Miles. I thought that was crazy, but then even crazier than that, for like his second to last song, he brought out David Lee Roth from Van Halen, and they all sang Jump together, which was crazy. I mean, that's one of my favorite rock songs of the 80s. I love Van Halen, so I'm very happy to have heard that. And then we also have Cat's Eye in the Groovy tier, who they're a group that has gone through a lot of drama recently surrounding one of their members being on hiatus / kicked out of the group, maybe. I honestly don't really know much about it myself, but I did enjoy this set. They have some good tunes, namely like Gabriella, Gnarly, Game Boy. I like those songs, so I liked this. It did feel like their vocals were a little weak at times, but they can dance really well, and they have a very cool stage presence. I think this group kind of deserves better, judging by what they're going through with the industry and all that stuff, because they're talented performers. And then we have Alex G. He's this guy who makes indie rock stuff, started releasing music on Bandcamp way back in the early 2010s, so his success is kind of like a true indie success story, which I find really inspiring. I've heard a lot about him for years and years now, so now that I've finally checked him out, I can safely say his music is pretty darn good, and I definitely would love to go back and listen to more of his albums and all that, because I think that I could end up really becoming a fan of this guy. But yeah, that's it for the Groovy tier. Now in the Such a Vibe tier, which I just moved Yukisuke Yukimatsu up to, starting up that tier, we have French Police. They're this band that I think is from Chicago that makes post-punk music that sounds just like it came out of the early 80s, which I love that kind of style music. I love like Joy Division and all those bands like so much. So seeing a band that was kind of throwing it back to that sound, I just thought that was really cool, and I thought their music was really cool as well. I definitely think that when it comes to newer bands, I think I've found like a new favorite band of mine now, and I'm really happy I got to listen to it. Next we have OK Lou. She's this French singer. I don't know if I mispronounced her name just now, but she's a French singer. She released her debut album last year called Choke Enough. I thought it was like fine, but I still decided to check out her live performance, and honestly, I think that these songs from this album work a lot better in a live context than they do on the studio version. But then again, I did end up re-listening to the album, and I ended up liking it more this time, so maybe it's just that the album had to grow on me or something. Like, it's just you don't get it at first, but then when it hits kind of deal. I watched the Weekend 2 set, so I unfortunately missed the super hype moment from Weekend 1 where she actually brought out Underscores to sing Harvest Sky with her. I thought that was insanely cool, because I love Underscores. She's one of my favorite singers. In fact, that's actually why I tuned into OK Lou in the first place, because of that collaboration, Harvest Sky, which is a really good song. It was always my favorite song off the Choke Enough album, mostly because of Underscores' presence, but still. This OK Lou girl, she's very talented, and I think that she has the potential to make an absolute masterpiece in the future. Next we have the first set I watched, which was this indie rock band called New Dad. I only caught like the second half of their Weekend 1 set, but I can safely say I do enjoy their style. Once again, it's very much like an 80s throwback, and you can't really go wrong with that. The lead singer has a very pretty voice. I don't know her name, but I've checked out more of this band's songs as a result, and once again, when it comes to new bands, these might be a new favorite for me. And then for another new band, we have one that actually has been taking off quite a bit recently, Geese. Now, Geese, you have to have heard of Geese at this point if you've been paying attention to music disorders at all. Recently, there was some discourse involving them, like, hiring a marketing company, and that's a problem for some reason. But anyways, this was my first time really checking out the band Geese at all after having heard good things about them for so long. And I could safely say I really liked it because I honestly had no idea what time period they were trying to throw back to. At times it felt like the 70s, especially with the visuals swapping between aspect ratios. It kind of looked like a 70s concert film at times. Or the 90s alt-rock stuff that I also really love. It kind of felt like they were throwing back to that at times. So it really felt like this sort of collage of styles that is really interesting and I think makes for a great band. So yeah, I liked Geese a lot. Check them out if you can. Next we have one of the kind of most legendary bands of the sort of indie garage rock revival of the 2000s, The Strokes. And The Strokes are another classic band who They've kind of been hit or miss for me personally, but I did thoroughly enjoy their set this year because, their big songs are the ones that I definitely do really like. And, well, if you watch the Weekend 2 performance, then what they did near the end of their set, you'll know that I have a lot of respect for them for doing that. I'm not going to go into it here, but if you know, you know. They have great music, and also Julian Casablancas is pretty funny, so yeah. Next we have Addison Rae. This was another case where vocals were kind of weak at points, but on the whole, I really liked the sort of fame and glory narrative of it all. I think her debut album was a really solid pop album. I'm not really sure where she's gonna go from here, but this performance makes me hopeful that she'll probably do something cool. Also, she brought Olivia Rodrigo on Weekend 2, which I didn't actually see in full because I watched the Weekend 1 performance, but still a great show nonetheless. Then we have the British singer Labyrinth. You probably know him because he did the music for Euphoria, or before that, he even had this song called Beneath You're Beautiful, which he did not perform here. I don't even think he likes that song. Editor fact-checked me on that if he said he doesn't like the song in an interview somewhere. His set was really cool. He was using a bunch of vocal effects. He started by performing in a gas mask. He was playing a bunch of instruments. And he just has a really incredible voice that honestly took me to church, in all honesty. I really loved it. Then we have this group/solo project called Los Retros, which was also an 80s throwback, but to like 80s like R&B, funk, and city pop, which is like my favorite style of music like ever. So I was really happy to see someone throwing back to that, getting a big platform like Coachella. This set was cool. This is another one of my new favorite acts now. I'm really happy I checked this out. Then we have Gigi Perez, a folk singer-songwriter from, I forget where. I put her in my best hit songs of 2024 with her song Sailor Song. She hasn't had any more hits since, unfortunately, but she is an absolutely incredible talent, so I'm happy that I watched her. Like I said in the tier, her set was such a vibe. It was very relaxing. She performed like an almost sort of 8-minute version of Sailor Song at the end. She also brought out Noah Cyrus, which I thought was really cool. And she's just a really great singer and songwriter, and I hope she gets more hits. She really deserves it. She's awesome. Also, a friend of mine went to school with her, which is pretty cool. So, anyway. Next we have Iggy Pop, one of the most legendary punk rockers. In fact, arguably like the first ever punk rocker. You know, he was obviously known for his rowdy stage runs back in the day. And of course, he's like almost 80 years old now, so of course it's not as rowdy now, but he performed a lot of his classics like Lust for Life and The Passenger. I think I might have forgotten the name of that song. Search and Destroy, I Want to Be Your Dog. These are all absolute classics. And, you know, seeing an old legend still making music and still performing like he was in his prime is just really inspiring to me. Then we have this, I want to say German DJ called Bunt, who I found out about earlier this year because he actually remixed Taylor Swift's song Opalite. I really enjoyed that remix a lot. It was my favorite of the Opalite remixes that got put out. So I ended up checking more of the dude's solo music and I thought it was great. His DJ set at Coachella on the Sahara stage was just as great. He played some unreleased stuff that I thought was cool, and even the stuff I already knew, it sounded really good coming through those speakers. He's just a great DJ. He's like if John Summit made good music. Yes, I'm gonna be shady in this. That's all for the Such a Vibe tier, though. First up in the peak tier, we have Loive. If you don't know her, she's an Icelandic singer-songwriter that makes music that really throws it back to like 40s traditional pop and like 60s bossa nova. I think she's really cool, although I do disagree with all the narratives that she's a savior of jazz or whatever. If you want a modern-day jazz singer, go listen to Samara Joy. But Loive is really cool. Her Coachella set had this like Disney princess thing going on, which I guess fits with the aesthetics of the album that she released last year, A Matter of Time. And I like most of her music. My father likes most of her music. I think that if you don't like her music, you're kind of just hating for no reason. Then we have Rez. I found out about Rez a few years ago because she collaborated with Deadmau5, and ever since then I've kind of enjoyed her music casually, but recently I would say I've become an actual fan because she's been embracing a more dark, industrial, kind of just Safelstein influence direction to me. I loved the visuals in her performance too. There was like moments where there was like pyrotechnics and stuff. I can't recall everything right now, but I loved a lot of the visuals. There were a lot of like haunted house, sort of scary imagery, which fits with the music a lot. And I also love her hypno goggles that she wears. I actually did miss her week 1 performance initially, and then she canceled her week 2 performance for health reasons, so I was sad, but thankfully she uploaded her full Coachella set on YouTube, so I was able to watch it after the festival ended. So I'm also giving her bonus points for that. And on the whole, her set was just awesome. 1 hour of straight headbanging, mosh pit forming electronic music. I recommend her if you're into like heavy electronic music like me. And then we have the band Devo, one of the most legendary new wave bands of all time, hands down. This was like watching Kraftwerk last year at Coachella. I mean, maybe not as crazy as that, but still really, really cool. They performed all their hits. I was actually singing along here because I am a fan of Devo. I know a lot of their hits. And it was just such a fun time getting to see, once again, these like 70-year-old legends still performing as if they were in their prime. Again, really awesome. Then we have Ethel Cain, who, well, I mean, if you haven't heard of her, you're not living under a rock, but you are living out of the light. You need to learn about Ethel Cain now. She's incredible. She kind of became a pop star accidentally because she released a few songs that sounded like that, like Bruce Springsteen could have made them. But, you know, her 3 albums, I Don't Care, Perverts is an album, y'all can't tell me otherwise, are all really good. She's just has a beautiful voice, kind of reminds me of Lana Del Rey in a way, and getting to see these songs being performed. This is my first time watching Ethel Cain live. This was my first time actually watching the live performances by a lot of these artists, in all honesty. I haven't really been clarifying that enough. But Ethel Cain is an absolutely incredible artist. I'm happy she got to perform at Coachella. She totally deserves it. And her set was great, so that's why it's in peak tier. I especially loved when she like sang the demo of Punish. That was really cool. Kind of a deep cut there. And then we have Moby. Moby's one of the most legendary electronic musicians of all time. I still have yet to fully check out his discography, but I mean, of course, I've heard Play, his album from 1999, with Porcelain, Body Rock, and a bunch of other great songs on it. Getting to see, this was my first time watching a live performance of his, at least a full one anyway. And oh my god, it was so fun for the whole duration. He brought out this singer called Jacob Lusk, who I had never heard of, but his voice was beautiful, kind of reminded me of Sam Smith. Moby was still singing well, and like I was making the point of like old people making music and performing like they were still in their prime, but Moby's like 60 years old and was still like running around stage like a madman. It was awesome. Like you can tell he still has a lot of energy and a lot of passion for music, which I just think is really awesome. And because of how, you know, legendary he is, of course his set was peak. Then we have Boys Noise. He did a DJ set at the Yuma tent, and it was, I think, the only Yuma tent thing that I willingly chose to watch all the way through at all. In fact, I think it's the only Yuma tent thing in this tier list. His set was awesome. He played a lot of like sort of 110-ish BPM, deep, heavy electronic music, but also some like Brazilian funk stuff. Just a lot of great tunes in general. Though I'm going to talk a bit more about Boys Noise a bit later. You'll hear me. Then we have Pink Pantheress, one of the most promising young pop girls of the last few years. She's been having her moment. I've been absolutely in love with her mixtape Fancy that came out last year, as well as her previous 2 projects, her album Heaven Knows and her mixtape To Hell With It. This performance had kind of like a narrative of her finding her Romeo and him leaving, but then she meets up with him again. I thought it was really cool. I watched her week 1 and week 2 sets, actually, because of how good it was, so maybe I should inject this into my veins tier. But the reason it's a little lower is because on both the nights that she performed, both Saturdays or Sundays, I think, I forget, it kind of sounded like her microphone was having some issues at times, and it wasn't really capturing her voice. Maybe that's just because of the quiet way she sings, not really conjoining itself as well to live performances that are like very much like big productions with a lot of choreo and all that. But I absolutely love her music, and I absolutely love the special guests she brought out. Week 1, it was Precious Renee Tucker and Thundercat on the song Break It Off, and an interlude with The Dare DJing, which was really awesome. Horse Girl was in the background during that. And then week 2, she brought out Zara Larsson to sing her remix of Midnight Sun. Oh, she also brought out Dev Hynes, aka Blood Orange. More on him later. And she even brought out Nina Geraci, probably my favorite, like, Australian young DJ. She's awesome. I love her music so much. I'm happy she's having her moment. More on her Coachella set later, of course, but you know. Then we have Clips. Again, legendary hip hop duo. They sang all the hits. Well, you know what I mean, rapped. All the hits. I watched their week 1 set. They had Travis Barker for the first few songs, which was really cool. And that was just kind of like an onslaught of great songs from their album last year, Let God Sort 'Em Out, which is album of the year for me, hands down. Should have won Best Rap Album at the Grammys, honestly. Like, I love you, Kendrick, but GNX was not as good as your previous stuff. It was just so amazing to see these two live after they've been, like, not making music together for so long. Then we have Somber. Somber gets a lot of hate on, like, social media and stuff, but honestly, I don't really care. His music is great, and, like, he's only, like, a year older than me, which is kind of surreal to me because he's got an unbelievable level of talent vocally and as a producer and songwriter. His songs are kind of like, you can tell that a young person wrote this, but, I mean, I'm a young person. I relate to the emotions he's experiencing in these songs. And, you know, again, he's just talented. Week 1, he brought out Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins. They sang 1979. Week 2, he brought out Billy Idol. They sang Eyes Without a Face. And, well, Somber managed to out-sing Billy Idol, which was crazy. And on the whole, that performance, like, it just taught me that, yes, Somber is someone who's here to stay. I mean, I don't really like the whole, oh, I'll see you back here when I headline thing. Sabrina Carpenter did that a couple years ago. She headlined this year. Like, of course, other people are going to try and follow in her footsteps. But if there's one person who did that whole, oh, I'm going to headline one day thing that I believe could headline this one day, it's probably Somber, to be honest. Then we have the DJ set by Cascade, a DJ, record producer, and sometimes singer, who I forget is American a lot of the time. I used to think he was Swedish for a long time. He's collaborated with deadmau5 a bunch of times, including as part of the duo KX5. But even on his own, he's got a lot of bangers, and I was really eager to watch his DJ set. Unfortunately, I did miss it at the actual Coachella, but again, thing got fully uploaded to YouTube, so I was able to watch it after the fact. So I really appreciate that. Again, I loved the visuals here, and I loved the song choices. He was just a great DJ, knew how to hype up the crowd for sure. He brought out Bunt at one point. They teased a new song together. I'm excited for that because I mentioned that Bunt's one of my favorite of, like, the new sort of EDM DJs and all that. And Cascade's just a legend, you know. And then lastly, in peak tier, we have Little Sims. You know how I mentioned when I was talking about Fake Mink that there's much better British rappers out there? She's who I was referring to. Yeah, her set, incredible. Her album last year, incredible. She even performed my favorite song from that album, which was the single, Free. She also performed something from that, like, project she put out in 2024 with all the club songs. She, like, brought out the CDJ to literally DJ while she was rapping, which was insanely cool. And this was, like, also doing this with a live band too. So, like, the live band went back, and then she started DJing, and then the live band came back out again, I think, if I'm remembering it right. It was just a really insane, awesome performance. She deserves to headline one day. Out of all the British rappers, she deserves to be much bigger in the United States. You know, she deserves what Central C has, essentially. Now, starting absolute cinema tier, David Byrne, one of my favorite artists, like, ever. Talking Heads, one of my favorite bands ever. Remain in Light is one of the best albums ever, hands down. David Byrne performed a lot of Talking Heads songs, as I said. He only performed, like, 3 solo songs. 2 of them are from his new album, I believe, or, like, 4 of them. And he also performed Strange Overtones, his song with Brian Eno from back in 2008, which was another favorite song of mine for a long time. He and the band were all wearing, like, similar colored jackets. Week 1 was red, week 2 was blue. And performing these, like, updated versions of these classic songs, just really awesome. I was more than happy to watch both weeks of him. He also performed the alternate lyrics to Psycho Killer and included the cello arrangement by Arthur Russell in his performance of it, so I thought that was cool. Also, his performance of Once in a Lifetime was, of course, a highlight. I was singing along like a madman for like half of David Byrne's set. It was crazy, it was fun, and one of the most fun experiences I've ever had watching a festival. In fact, I'm going to move him up to inject this into my veins, dear. And the next in Absolute Cinema, in fact, this is probably the most literal definition of Absolute Cinema here. This felt like watching a movie. Sabrina Carpenter. So many cool special guests. Editor flashed them all on screen. She killed it as a performer, as a dancer. Because this is, I guess, was sort of the soft launch of the Man's Best Friends tour. For all the other songs from other albums, she performed even more 70s and 80s-ified disco versions of them. I especially love the versions of Feather that she performed, which was a matchup with Copacabana, and also the version of Please, Please, Please that she performed. Wait, no, Busy Woman. The version of Busy Woman that she performed was also very 80s funk influenced, whereas the original was a bit more country. And I mean, this was her sort of getting what she manifested. And it was really cool. The whole story of the performance was really cool. I don't really want to summarize the story because, again, it was an almost 2-hour performance because she was a headliner, so we'd be here for way too long. But if I could go back and watch one of the headliners again, it would be Sabrina Carpenter. Though I didn't watch Karol G, so maybe I should have watched Karol G. I don't know. I never really liked Karol G's music that much. Next, we have the XX. They're a band who I haven't really gotten into, but I need to now. I have gotten into the music of their solo members, Jamie XX and Romy, but never the band themselves. After watching this performance, though, I'm fully convinced I need to get into the XX properly. Oliver Sim and Romy both have beautiful voices. Jamie XX is an extremely amazing producer and live performer as well. This performance felt like they were saying to me, yeah, you've been missing out. Check our stuff out now. And, well, I have now listened to their albums, and I think they might be one of the greatest bands of all time. Next, we have Foster the People, a band that I think everyone knows the one song by, but I've never checked out their other music before because I've always kind of thought of them as a one-hit wonder. Boy, was I missing out. I loved pretty much everything heard here. There was a lot more disco-centric stuff than I thought there would be. But, I'm not complaining to hear that kind of thing because, disco is my favorite genre ever. The lead singer, Foster the People, is great, even though he's the only consistent member. And this whole set, I mean, I know I didn't put it in such a vibe tier because it was even better than that, but it was a vibe. I was vibing throughout the whole thing, even though I only knew the one song. But when that one song came on, best believe, I was shouting, screaming the lyrics at the top of my lungs. Anyway, stream Lost in Space. Next we have Blood Orange, who I've heard a lot about, never checked him out. His work definitely reminds me of Prince, though, I can say that now, so of course this is going to go in Absolute Cinema. He brought out Empress of and the guy from Turnstile as guest stars. Turnstile is another set that I missed, as you can probably see from earlier in this video. Dev Hynes, aka Blood Orange, he performed with a full band. He performed a lot of songs that I had never really heard, of course, because I haven't really checked out Blood Orange before, but after watching him, I had to go back and listen to a lot of the stuff I hadn't heard, and oh my god, I've been missing out. There's a lot of arguments about who the next Prince is. I'd say that the lineage goes from Prince, D'Angelo, and then Blood Orange comes right after that. That's how freaking talented Blood Orange is, I have to be honest. Oh, and also Little Sims is the Gen Z Lauryn Hill, so these two should collab one day. Thank me later if it actually ends up happening. And lastly, in the Absolute Cinema tier, we have one of my favorite electronic duos of all time, who I have actually checked out all the stuff of, Disclosure. Disclosure, apparently one of the guys has, super hearing. I forgot why I heard that. I don't know if it's true, but, he can hear frequencies that other people can't hear, so their mastering's, really advanced. Which you can tell when you listen to their music. They make music that just sounds clean and polished, but still insanely groovy. They're one of the acts that, besides Daft Punk, Chemical Brothers, and all that, these retro duos, because Disclosure only started in the early 2010s, I think. Editor, fact check me on that. I will recommend Disclosure to anyone who is looking to even kind of get into electronic music. They are awesome, and their set was awesome. They brought out some very cool special guests. They brought out this rapper from Tennessee who I'd never heard of, and they performed a new song called Bite Me, which I'm excited for that to come out. But even besides that, it was just such a fun time. I feel like I'm kind of getting repetitive with the language in this video, so sorry, but I'm not able to come up with super varied language when I'm just going off script. I don't know how long this video is at this point, but still. But lastly, we have the Inject This Into My Veins tier. I added David Byrne to that. And first we have 9 Inch Noise. They're a supergroup consisting of Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross, 9 Inch Nails, of course, with Boys Noise, and Trent Reznor's wife, Mara Queen Harding. They essentially performed a bunch of remix versions of a bunch of 9 Inch Nails songs, and one song by Trent Reznor's other group that he had with his wife. I forget what it was called, but editor, you can put the name of it up on screen. Heresy, Closer, and the song from Tron Ares, As Alive As You Need Me to Be, came back on it. They killed it, I have to be honest. This was seriously one of the best live performances I've ever seen. If I ever get the chance to actually see 9 Inch Noise in person, I am taking that chance. This is one of the coolest things I have ever witnessed. And also the album, which was basically just their Coachella set list, but with some studio recordings in place of live recordings. It was so good. One of my favorite electronic music releases of the year. Then we have Slater, who released one of my favorite pop albums of the year, Worst Girl in America. I'm going to do a little mini review of that in my upcoming video. Slight spoiler to what that upcoming video is, I guess. But yeah, Slater, she knows how to put on a show. This is the first time she's ever performed with a full live band, which, despite the fact that she makes electronic pop music, the full live band performances really made these songs pop even more than they already did. And I actually do have her set downloaded, a recording of it, so, I will probably be watching it many times in the future. I'm really happy that she's finally getting her moment, seemingly. I'm calling it now, before the end of the year, she's gonna have at least one top 40, maybe even top 10 charting song on the Hot 100 or something. She's that incredible, and she really is going in that direction with her trajectory. Then we have Nina Geraci. Yeah, I already said this is my favorite EDM artist, maybe of all time now. Obviously she takes a lot after Porter Robinson, who she brought out on weekend 1, by the way, and they teased a collab called Wanna Cry that still has not been dropped yet. Please, Porter, Nina, drop it and my life is yours. And, she DJ'd a lot of the songs from I Love My Computer, as well as a couple other deep cuts from across her catalog, and in addition to the Porter Robinson collaboration, and my god, she is such a good DJ. I wish I had downloaded a recording of it, if I could find a recording of it. This was truly one of the best DJ sets I've ever witnessed. Nina Geraci's incredible. Go check her out now. Now. No, I'm not kidding. Pause the video, go listen to I Love My Computer right now, then come back. Next we have FKA Twigs. British singer-songwriter, released 2 albums last year called Eusexual and Eusexual Afterglow, mostly performed songs from that and from her mixtape Capri Songs from 2022. I love all 3 of these albums, although one's a mixtape. I love all 3 of these projects, I should say. And oh my god, FKA Twigs, once again, another incredible singer and dancer. She might not be quote-unquote getting her moment, but she was supposed to perform at Coachella last year, missed it due to visa issues. She more than made up for missing it last year. My god, this was a headline type of performance, even though she was on Mojave and not the main stage even. But, it actually almost made me cry at the end when she sang Cellophane, an extended 6-minute version of Cellophane. I mean, that song already almost makes me cry in general, but truly, she's one of the most incredible talents we have in modern music today. I hope she gets more famous. She totally deserves it. She should be a headliner. She deserves it fully. We're in the final stretch now. It is time for Jane Remover. Someone who 5 years ago, or 4 years ago, 3 years ago, if you had told me that she would perform at Coachella, I would have called you crazy. But, oh my god. She had one of my favorite sets ever. Another one that I wish I could download. I mean, I kind of wish I could download all of this top tier. Really all of the, top 3 tiers, to be honest. But she performed, a bunch of songs from her new album, Revenge Seekers. And Revenge Seekers was another album of the year contender for me, and an album of the year contender for other people that might be watching this video. If you know, you know. I really don't even have the words to describe Jane Remover's performance. It was loud, it was abrasive, it's not going to be for everyone, but it doesn't matter. I especially love that music during the Music Baby Leroy mix, where she shouted for the crowd to kill each other. That's probably the most badass thing you can do as a performer. Jane Remover is another one, I think, of the best performers we have in the modern day. The fact she's only a few years older than me is just insane. I love her. And, well, Her music's probably too abrasive to ever be truly mainstream. But oh my god, I want it to be bigger so badly. Second to last, actually no wait, no, this is the last one because I moved David Byrne up here. We have Tamora, a super duo consisting of Tom Rollins of the Chemical Brothers with Norwegian singer Aurora, who have collaborated before. Chemical Brothers and Aurora, they've collaborated by virtue of Aurora appearing on their album No Geography, which is my favorite The Chemical Brothers album. And also Tom Rollins produced a lot of Aurora's album Whatever Happened to the Heart from back in 2024. I might have misnamed that, but it's whatever. Aurora's got some solid music of her own too, even though I'm not as big a fan of her by herself because I just haven't checked her out in full yet. But I am a massive fan of the Chemical Brothers, so I knew when they formed an official duo called Tomora, I knew I had to check it out. I've loved every single from this duo. I loved the album as soon as it dropped. This is another album of the year contender for me for 2026, by the way. There was like another girl performing on stage with Aurora. I don't know who this girl's name is. I don't know what the lore is, but they both killed it. And it was like kind of cute when they like hugged each other at the end. On top of just, you know, the album being amazing, they even played like some of the Chemical Brothers songs that Aurora appeared on, including one called The Universe Sent Me, which the Chemical Brothers have never performed live before, at least not in full. And I kind of screamed when that happened, and I know other people probably did too, because I know for a fact that a lot of Chemical Brothers fans really love that song. And to be honest, that was really it. I mean, that's the entire tier list, to be honest. So yeah, that's a tier list. I know that this has probably been a very underwhelming video, because I might not be that interesting when I'm just talking off the cuff or whatever, but I wanted to do something for Coachella, and I'm glad I got it out of the way now. More videos coming soon, of course. Stay tuned for those. They'll actually be a little bit scripted, so they're probably more interesting than this. This hopefully won't be, 2 hours, or however long my last video was, like 2.5 hours. This will hopefully only be like, what, half an hour, maybe? I don't know. But anyways, I loved making this tier list. Feel free to make your own Coachella ranking, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.
I'm